भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागं सस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord who is the origin of the universe. Lord, thou abidest in all, thou art all, thou assumest all forms, thou art the origin and goal of all, thou art the self of all, thou art existence, knowledge and bliss. Salutations unto thee. May the world be peaceful, may the wicked become gentle, may all creatures think of mutual welfare, may their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Let us close our eyes and feel the innermost core of our being, which remains unchanged in spite of all physical and mental changes. Let us feel that as a steadily burning candle flame. I see that light has spread all over my personality. I am seeing myself as light. All my body is made of light. Like in a wax statue, all limbs are made of wax. I see I am made of this light. The same light I see has enveloped the whole universe. All different shapes, forms are dissolved in this divinely luminous ocean of existence. Very bright is this light, and yet not scorching. All the differences, distinctions, and separateness has dissolved. I see I am infinite. I am beyond time and space. I am bliss itself. I am the peace itself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Om. Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatar varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha yathagnirdahika shakti Ramakrishne sthita hiya sarvavidya swarupam tam saradam pranamamyaham Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the incarnation of this age, the incarnation supreme, the one who is of the nature of all different faiths and has appeared to establish religion in the hearts of human beings. Salutations to Holy Mother, His divine consort, inseparable from Him, like the burning power of fire cannot be separated from it. And salutations to His most prominent disciple, Swami Vivekananda, who has been entrusted the job of scattering his teachings all over the world. Dear friends, today we shall think of the Master Mahashaya, the chronicler of the great book, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the vehicle through which Sri Ramakrishna has reached everywhere. uh, Sri Ramakrishna brought with him various different people who were instrumental in absorbing and distributing his message in various ways. Each of those instruments had a unique purpose. Like all these implements that we see that run on electricity. Like we have these lights, we have also the air conditioner going on, we also have this sound system going on. They all are scattering the power of electricity in their own way. The sound system is not giving you the light, and the light is not giving you the air conditioner, but all of them, they are manifestations of this power of electricity. So, Sri Ramakrishna, to accomplish the work of establishing the religion, that is what Swami Vivekananda mentions in the opening verse that we recited, Sthapakaya cha dharmasya, that to bring religion in its essence to the doorstep of everyone in the universe, irrespective of what faith they call, whatever name they used to call their faith, doesn't matter. The essence of all religions is the same, and that is why he established that by practicing all different faiths, which ultimately lead to the same one goal. And Swami Vivekananda described it in what is written there, you can read what is on the banner there. Religion is the manifestation of divinity already in man. That divinity is to be manifested. That is the religion. And one special instrument that Sri Ramakrishna brought with him was Mahaendra Nathgupta, M., who by profession was a school teacher, and he took down the conversations with Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever he was present, he would note those conversations in a diary. And now that has brought the message of Sri Ramakrishna in the words that Sri Ramakrishna actually has spoken. That is a big departure from the message that we get from all other incarnations. Because this is the age of skepticism, that people won't believe. That already that question gets asked in the parlors of religious discussion. What is the proof that these are in Bible you get the actual words of Jesus? None of those who wrote that were actually present while those things happened. They were all written much later afterwards and compiled and edited and all that many times. So there is, and many different gospels, they were discarded. So what is the authenticity? Yeah, that is the question is there. In Bhagavad Gita, also you will see what you read are not the actual words of Krishna. Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, can you imagine? They were having that discussion in verse form. No, nobody has a conversation in that such a situation in verse form. So, and actually it is mentioned there that message has been put in Mahabharata, Vyasena Grathita. it was worded by Vyasa and put in this great monumental work of Mahabharata. So, that is how what we read in Bhagavad Gita, while the message is same, message is correct, but is there an evidence that they were actually the words of Lord Krishna? There is no such evidence. In fact, they were not those words that can be asserted more faithfully. Similarly, you see the words of all other God incarnation, they are not available. In case of Buddha, there is some level of authenticity. But that Tripitaka, the three-tiered gospel of Buddha, that also was compiled much later, and you see there those who wrote it, they were not witnesses to those incidences. They heard it from somebody, and therefore it begins, all those stories, narrations, they begin with this phrase, "Thus I have heard." So, but in modern times, those times it was okay. People used to have faith. They were not questioning every now and then the nitty-gritties of things. But this is this so-called scientific age. Not that we are very scientific, but it is, we call ourselves intellectuals and scientific, we take pride in it. And so, to set all those doubts aside, Sri Ramakrishna brought a special instrument. Later on he became known as M. Shri Ma. In Bengali, this word, Swami Chaitanyananji has given a specific connotation of that. The Bengali edition says that Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, Shri Ma Kathita. So it is Shri Ma Kathita, means narrated by narrated by M. That becomes the literal meaning. But there is a hidden meaning behind that, and that is that Shri Ma itself is a way of addressing God. Shri and Ma is a name by which God gets addressed, and therefore Shri Ma means that God himself has spoken these things and it is recorded. How do we know that this is what the work that Sri Ramakrishna had already assigned for this person? There were some others who were taking some notes, copying certain things while Sri Ramakrishna was speaking, thinking that it would be nice to have these recordings. Some Sri Ramakrishna's monastic disciples later, they were also amongst them. To one of them, Sri Ramakrishna said, "Hey, that's not your work, that's not your job." And then he took all those writings and threw it in the Ganges. So it is, the job was assigned to somebody, and Sri Ramakrishna did not want somebody else to interfere and spoil things and create controversies. And that instrument has to be capable instrument, you see. It is an instrument that is assigned a specific job, has to have the basic skills to do that. Otherwise, you will not, that instrument you can assign, but it will not have that efficacy. And therefore, you see what the characteristics of M were. Firstly, he was, as in the words of Sri Ramakrishna himself, that he is egoless. Means while narrating Sri Ramakrishna's words, he wouldn't put his own things there. He was just taking those things very authentically. Another important thing he says is that Sri Ramakrishna had empowered him, that and he was having a conversation with Divine Mother once, and he asked Divine Mother, why have you given him only one aspect, one kala? That kala also means art. When it comes to that it is kala means art, it has another meaning, means aspect. Like that we use this word kala of moon. So there it is not art, it means one aspect. So why have you given him only one aspect? And then as it were holy, that Divine Mother has told him, he says that, oh, I see, that will be sufficient for your work. And it is the work of the Divine Mother. Sri Ramakrishna had no axe to grind as such. He himself considered himself as an instrument in the hands of Divine Mother. And then he said about M that no ego it is, and M also called himself his master's voice. In olden times, there was this gramophone company, HMV. I don't know whether it is still there or not. So HMV. So there used to be a picture of a speaker and then a dog sitting there with the ear to that. So, and then as if the God is listening to his master's voice. We used to have some funny puzzle also being asked, hey, tell whether that dog that in the picture is male or female. Now, who sees that closely? The picture doesn't. Yeah, so whether the dog is male or female? No, I don't know. It is male, his master's voice, isn't it? It is not said her master's voice. So it is. So that in our school days we used to have that fun. So it is M said that I am just his voice, that's all. It is what he spoke, that's all. So, and his life depicted all those qualities. So, it is, and it brought such fame to M, but he didn't take it at all. It is all his voice. So, the book became such a great help to people to understand the message of spirituality, and that why that message is important, because that brings what we actually seek in life. Well, I am not religious, many people say. In a way, what they are saying is that they are not particularly interested in some form of religion. But everybody seeks happiness, and the religion can be described as the proper way of seeking happiness. Do you want to seek happiness in a proper way or an improper way? Everybody will say, well, seeking in proper way is the best thing. So that is called religion, to seek happiness. It is, we gradually it gets discovered by us that it is going within that we find the source of happiness, and then the whole universe becomes full of happiness for us. People who came to Sri Ramakrishna first noticed this, that what a happy person here is, in spite of all these circumstances which are sometimes pleasant and sometimes terribly unpleasant. His happiness, his bliss never changes, because it is not derived from something outside. It is from within. The science of seeking happiness. There is a recent book that has been published, written by a wonderful nun, that it is Science of Happiness by Divyananda Prana. So, that is what the religion is, that it is science of happiness. So, in that sense, everybody is religious. So, this religion is brought to people through these words. There is no that clutter of various rituals, infinitely many complicated doctrines. It is so simple. As remarked by Isherwood, Christopher Isherwood, the writer of many books on Sri Ramakrishna and Vedanta, he says, the gospel atmosphere. He was a poet, a wonderful writer. So the word he has used really struck me, that the gospel atmosphere is now. In quotes, gospel atmosphere is now. Means when you are reading them, you are transported to that situation. You are actually in that presence. It is not that some past incidents are being narrated and you are not there as if you are reading a history book. No, it is presence, that it is now. It is happening now also. You can just sit there. Many times when I used to give about 3 years ago or so, the classes on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, so I used to request the listeners that please, there is a narration, what day it was, what time it was, where Sri Ramakrishna was, at what place, how he was seated, and who were present. There would be the names like Balram, Ram, Keshav, this, that, Naren. So I would suggest, please add your own name to that list. You also are present. And you can then feel the power of it, that book. Even if you are a skeptic, it doesn't matter. It has way of getting into you. So, and thus it gets awakened. So, and M remained in that whole book completely anonymous. He never gave his name there. When the conversation was with him, when he was having actually conversation with Sri Ramakrishna, he referred himself with so many names, which later on were found out that it was he who was referring himself with all these pen names. Like one, he calls himself a school teacher. The school teacher was there. Then Mani. Then that Mani Mohan, Mohini, Mahim, a Bhakta, a Sevaka, and an Englishman. He asked certain things to Sri Ramakrishna as Englishman. Means he was English educated, you know. He was educated like the people going to English schools. So he was educated like that in the Western style of education. So he referred to himself as an Englishman. So very interesting. He was born in the year 1854 and met Sri Ramakrishna when he was about 28 years old. He was born in a family, in a big joint family. He was one amongst 5 brothers and 6 sisters. And that was not very strange those days. People used to have a lot of children. So, and now also in some places you find people have a lot of children. So it is that, and it was thus a very big family. M was very brilliant. He was the 4th amongst the 5 brothers. So, and he went to school. He was throughout, that's what you will call in these days, straight A's student. It is very brilliant and very much liked by everyone because of his very mild, ego-effacing nature, loving nature. You know, the love automatically kind of is seen on the face, and people like such persons. So he was very dear to everyone. He completed his Bachelor of Arts and then joined the law school. But then there were the financial problems. In between he got married too, and his wife's name was Nikunja Devi. And he then had to bring money to the family. His father said, nothing doing now, up till now I have supported you, your education and all that, and now you have to contribute to the family expenses. You are now educated enough for now. So he had the dreams of becoming a civil service, passing the ICS exam, and also becoming a lawyer. So all those dreams, they were shattered. He never spoke later about them. Then what happened was he took up a job in a British firm there, where his father also was employed. But his poetic nature and the desire, connection with knowledge never made him satisfied there. He started looking for other openings, and his first stint as a teacher, which became as such from the standpoint of the secular way, that it is, he was then throughout a teacher, a school teacher. So he first got employed as a school teacher in a place, Jessore, which now is in what is called Bangladesh. So, and there he also became very well known, very popular, wonderful teacher. Then he later joined in the school that was being run by a great philanthropist and tremendously learned person, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, a great figure. His institution, the Metropolitan Institution, M became the headmaster there. And he was there for some years, but then there were complaints later that he sends the interested students to Sri Ramakrishna, and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, in spite of being a very much into philanthropy, very kind-hearted person, didn't have that kind of religious bent. So he disapproved of this, and thus M gave up that job. He went to different other schools and colleges as teacher. In the meantime, he had acquired additional qualifications too. He was, as I mentioned earlier, a very bright student. So he not only he was studying the law, he studied, in addition to that, the Indian, these scriptures like Upanishads, various the ancient law books like Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, etc. So all this he studied. He also studied the languages. He was very proficient in 3 languages. His mother tongue, Bengali, English and Sanskrit. He read many plays written in Sanskrit, and very much charmed by the language there, the beauty of the literature. And he has mentioned some of that in his reminiscences. So he changed from this school to that school, and then ultimately formed his own school, Morton Institution. So it is, and then that institution became so popular that the original house in which it was held, he had to buy another big building. So that is where that then became later. It was rented actually, and then he moved there. He was also living there on that Amherst Street. Now it is part of Ramakrishna Mission. So there he stayed till his old age. His work was so precise. His another great quality, or let us say the capability of this instrument. When you record, you have to have a very clear memory of everything. M was endowed with that photographic memory. He did not write like a steno. He did not take verbatim notes. He took in his diary just a few lines. But those few lines were like the names of the file, you on your computer you have many files, but every file will have some name. Now the name is not the whole file, but when you click on that name, the big file opens. It is like I have a file on my computer titled, the name of the file is Complete Works of Vivekananda. Brief, CWV. That is enough. Such a short name. When I click it, all those 8 volumes, I haven't put 9th volume there, all the 8 volumes, they open up. So it is big, but the name of the file is very small. So, but clicking, then the whole thing opens. Now, in normal people, it is not, the machines are not so efficient. Our brain, mind, machinery is not as efficient. For example, therefore, we have one experience and it gets into our memory, and then we don't have much control over bringing it out. Suddenly, when we don't want it to come up, it comes up. It is. And something we want to come, we keep on scratching, nothing comes up. It happens to me. As I am aging, I am noticing it more. At least now I have got the excuse to blame it on my age. That is an advantage. So it is. But with M, it was all so clear. When he would read those notes in the diary, read one line, it was the whole file would open before him. What happened that day, what was the time, and in what position Sri Ramakrishna was sitting, how was the atmosphere. When you read it, it therefore has the power to transport you from here to there. So it is because of his photographic memory. Our memories get blurred, there are so many, in psychology, you read about the false memories. That it is what not only what happened you remember, but what never happened, that also you can remember. It is, that is how it is, because of, not that the person is dishonest, but the memory functions are not going that well. So, something happened in one place, you superimpose it on some other place. Once it so happened that I told that incident sometimes before also, that one senior Swami in where I used to be earlier in Nagpur, so he told me to go to our library and get a particular book that he wanted. He said that book is in the library. And another Swami who was in charge of the library, he searched in the library and he said, sorry, I don't see that book, I don't think that book is in our library. He went through various different ways of search and said that, sorry, the book is not in our library. I said, no, that Swami said he has seen that book in the library and he has good memory. And that Swami remarked, his memory is so good, not only he remembers what happens, he also remembers what didn't happen. So it is, and it is not unknown, it is not just in his case, it is a very common phenomena, that something that never happened. There had been experiments to see that how a false memory can come up. Something never happened, but then you can talk to that person to believe that yes, we did meet on this day at the mall. And the person somehow remembers it. That never happened, but the person remembers it. Not only that, after remembering it, he starts telling it to others. So, this is the problem with common memory. M's memory was very photographic, clear, and so the file would open exactly as it happened. The whole picture would be there. All conversations would just appear as they happened. And so we get that whole picture. Moreover, what happened is that his own life was transformed by contact with Sri Ramakrishna. He didn't actually go first to Sri Ramakrishna to meet Sri Ramakrishna. That was not at all the idea. You can read it in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna's first few pages, that why did he go there? He was terribly depressed. as it happens, it was a joint family. So many brothers and their wives and children, they were staying together. And there was always petty politics that goes on, overpowering this. And then especially the ladies of the house always used to have squabbles. And he got terribly tired with all this. Oh, he was a person who loved this peace, and also not at all interested in quarrels. But then when you are living in that kind of surroundings, all the quarrels, they come to you. And then your peace gets shattered. So everybody complaining, complaining comes easy to common people, it is that, and always it is fault of somebody else. That is, the family inside that, the problems are like that, so it is, there is the example of one young girl who was married in a family, and then as it happens, she used to have always a fight with the mother-in-law, now and then. So she went to a saintly person, please give me some medication, something that will solve this problem. And we always have, therefore, the angry and such faces, sad, because I also feel sad after in the moment of anger you speak what you wouldn't normally speak, and then you have a remorse about it. Same thing happens to my mother-in-law. She also gets upset and says all sorts of things which she later repents. In anger, what happens is that the normal that the cart and the horse connection gets reversed. Normally you think and then speak. But then when you get angry, the speech precedes the thought. The cart is before the horse. So it is, and then thought comes later, which is useless now. So that thinking gets called as repentance. Why did I say like that? So she therefore went to this holy person and said that this is what is happening. She says something and then I also say something. And then she says, and then it generates so much of heat in the house, it is all. So give me some medicine. He said, okay, I'll give you a medicine. So Megha, this medicine is, not to be taken in. It is just, he says that this medicine is just to be kept in mouth. So it is, she is doctor, so I am telling that this medicine, so it is. So, how is this medicine works? He said, just keep it in the mouth. Whenever your mother-in-law is saying something to you, keep it in the mouth. And it worked, because she wouldn't reply, she wouldn't say anything, that thing being in the mouth. And thus the mother-in-law also wouldn't get any further fuel to continue the quarrel. So it is like that, it stops. But then normally people wouldn't agree to this, to be quiet. I am not going to take it lying down, okay? So the fights go on and at no end. So M decided, finally he said that enough is enough. He decided to leave the house, find some other place to live in. And so his wife also accompanied, and they decided to go first, just for a few days, to M's sister's place in Baranagar, not far from where they were living then, but they got into a carriage. Now what happened was that a horse carriage, on the way, a wheel of it came off. M was already depressed. He knew one of his friends staying nearby. Already it was night. And then when he went to that friend, for whatever reason, he received a very cold sort of reception. So he was sad, so he said, no, let's not stay here. And he hired another carriage and ultimately reached his sister's place around midnight. And then for a few days he stayed there. His nephew, Sidhu his name, he, seeing that his uncle's such condition, he took him to have a walk and all that, near Ganges. So there are some nice gardens there. So your mind will get soothed by that. That is the common advice. Come on, go to some peaceful place, get away from this, and so forth. So he took him to and different gardens, and then one garden that he said that Dakshineshwar. And there that contact happened. Sri Ramakrishna was there. So that is how the first meeting began. See the instrumentality here. That's later on there is no mention that this Sidhu ever again visited Sri Ramakrishna. But he brought Sri Ramakrishna there, that's it. You see in this hall, the workers who were building this place, they built this place. But that's it. None of them ever came later on. Their job was done. So it is like that. So that is how this connection began. Another very important aspect that is mentioned about M is that he was not too self-conscious while mentioning, while writing this Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And therefore, he narrated both his own shortcomings very frankly, didn't try to support or glorify anything. And more importantly, he also narrated many of his good qualities, many adorable qualities also he presented without being hesitant about it. So he was compared as Boswell, who was the writer for that Samuel Johnson, a huge biography considered to be an ideal biography. So that is how the conversations got written, and that contact gradually transformed him completely into a great saint. Sri Ramakrishna had many monastic disciples, and then there were many who were householder disciples. Once, and I remember that I tell it many times, that in some spiritual retreat, one of our senior Swami was asked by a devotee that, Swami, we are all samsari people. Samsari means caught in this whirlpool of worldly affairs. We are samsari people. Is there a way for us? And that Swami said that none of Sri Ramakrishna's devotee is a samsari. All are struggling to get out of this whirlpool. Some are monastics and some are householders. That much distinction is there. There is no such that somebody is wanting to just remain in this torturous whirlpool. We all want to get out of it and enjoy that freedom. That is what M was. He was householder. But he reached that tremendous state of illumination where he became an object of worship, adoration, tremendous reverence, even to the monastics of the order. So, he sent many young people who came to him to Sri Ramakrishna. Many school students went. We read that how M helped so many to get to Sri Ramakrishna. So, a wonderful history. And this book, gives so many such incidences, very illuminating thing. So, it is, and they became very well-known monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and even the disciples of those disciples. So, his life was a shining example of this. So, anybody would come in presence of M would be able to feel that. It is not to be explained, no need of further explanation there. Explanation becomes completely unnecessary. That it is, do I need to have a proof that Tridib Roy is sitting here? Well, I see him. It is, even if somebody tries to prove that he is not there, well, I will just smile at that. Enough, It is because that presence is the proof enough. We many times think that no, it has to be proved, established and all. That is for the lesser mortals to go through that. When you become such a shining light, you don't need any such thing. M had become that kind of light. And therefore, so many important things are there in the book. Somebody was telling me, I think yesterday, my memory is getting first, today or yesterday, that this today's lecture will be very simple for you because this is what you have read and all that. So nothing new. He said, nothing new, but that doesn't make things simple because I have to give this lecture within a certain time, and so what to choose, what not to choose becomes a big problem. It is when you have only a little thing to speak about, speak on this verse of Bhagavad Gita. So it is simple, it is. But when a big, such huge life with tremendous importance for all of us, now what to choose, what not to choose is very difficult. So, but I have decided to give, just for flavor, the impressions of two, one of whom was a very well-known writer on Indian scenarios, spiritual scenarios, also in Africa. His books that Secret Search in India, Secret Search in Africa, they are very famous books, Paul Brunton. So, Paul Brunton, he heard about M and then went to meet him in Kolkata. And I am giving you just a little sample of that, the conversation that happened. He was tremendously impressed by that divine presence. And so, then he asked that what his name is, that M used to brush aside all those inquiries. That is why we don't get much information about the M's other life, because he would just stop that conversation. Let us speak about something meaningful. Now what is the use of that? That is everybody's life, born at this place on this date, and there is nothing much about it. So it is, he brushed aside all those questions, and then he asked, Paul Brunton asked, will you tell me something about your master Ramakrishna? And that, yes, that is something is interesting to me. Like somebody who has that interest in a particular thing, one little boy comes here, you talk to him about something, he is not interested in it. Talk to him about football, and then the face lights up, you see. So it is, so when it was said about, let's tell me about Sri Ramakrishna. Now you raise a subject about which I love best to talk. It is nearly half a century since he left us, but his blessed memory can never leave me. Always it remains fresh and fragrant in my heart. I was 27 when I met him and was constantly in his society for the last 5 years of his life. The result was that I became a changed man. My whole attitude towards life was reversed. That is how it happens, in the company of a holy person. The whole course gets reversed. When you are going on a path and you are not finding that the destination is not coming any closer. So you ask somebody, how I want to go there. Oh, sorry, but you are going in a completely reverse direction. Sometimes it happens, people want to come here, and then they very quickly put the direction for, this Angel Road, which is instead of Angel Street, it shows up in Google Angel, Angel Road, which is not in Providence, but another town which has the word Providence in that, North Providence. So it is in the North Providence. And then they go there, moving here. Sometimes they call that there is no Vedanta society. I am right at 227 Angel Road. It is something very different. Well, no. It is, you have gone to another city. It is, and that it is, so come to Providence, not North Providence. So, when we get this advice, then what happens? That person immediately changed the course of journey. Came in a few minutes, then he arrived at the destination. So, when I met Sri Ramakrishna, the whole course of journey changed. That is what happens. You get the right direction, and then you start following the right direction, give up the wrong direction. So that is how it happened. And the result was, I was a changed man. My whole attitude towards life reversed. Such was the strange influence of this God-man Ramakrishna. He narrates many more things. We don't have much time today, but I'll read a little more from this. He says, I had never enjoyed such a blissful experience as when I was in the presence of Ramakrishna. So can you wonder why I came again and again? Whatever brings you joy, you go there again and again. And his joy keeps on increasing. When it is the true source of joy, the joy keeps on increasing. Otherwise, what happens? You think that there will be joy. You go there, and then you get what is called disillusion. But then you get into the habit, you get stuck with it. So even if it doesn't give you joy anymore, you have that stranglehold of that thing on you. So that is called the addiction, that to become free from it becomes difficult. It is not that it is giving you any joy, but you are in the clutches of it. But here, it keeps on giving you more and more joy because you have that, you are in the source. Other person that I am going to tell reminiscences of is Paramahamsa Yogananda. When he was not called Paramahamsa Yogananda, he was a young boy, and then he visited M for guidance. And the first thing M says when he arrives, that, well, I was talking to my Divine Mother, M says. And so this young man sees that he came at a wrong time. So he retreats, comes next day, and then only before going he says that, well, seek some blessings from Divine Mother for me, and leaves. Then he comes next day, long conversation, and then the meetings happened again and again. As you know, Paramahamsa Yogananda also has such a poetic way of writing. It is certainly a great language, and the poetry of it is wonderful. So he says that how, Sir, I have come very early, I confess, for your message. Think you that your devotion did not touch the infinite mercy? The motherhood of God that you have worshipped in forms both human and divine could never fail to answer your forsaken cry. It is, go directly to Divine Mother. You don't require a middleman to approach that. So, and then he gives the narration of how next day, some other day, he went to Dakshineshwar with M. And then also he narrates, another day found me walking alone near the Howrah station. I stood for a moment by a temple, silently criticizing a small group of men with drum and cymbals who were violently reciting a chant. And Paramahamsa Yogananda was not very happy with that. So he therefore was criticizing silently. And then I reflected my gaze that it is, he silently was saying how undevotionally they used the names of Lord's, they used the Lord's divine name in a mechanical repetition. It becomes, he thought it is to be just a mechanical repetition. But then he saw M there, and, Sir, how come are you here? This saint, ignoring my question, answered my thought. It is very important, and it requires a saint to do that, to answer the thought, not the question of the lip, but the query in the heart. So, he answered that query, that he said, he had called him little sir. Isn't it true, little sir, that the beloved's name sounds, what would be in Bengali original that little sir? Choto Moshai. Okay. So it is Choto Moshai. So it is, he said, that the beloved's name sounds sweet from all lips, ignorant or wise. When you love God, well, that name will sound sweet to you. Your criticizing them only shows that your love of God is not of that level. So friends, excuse me for this rather longish talk. It is, in fact, I was thinking of cutting it short today, but it couldn't be done, that it is, that story that a minister said that you all tell me to cut down my sermons short, and today I have decided that I will cut my sermon short no matter how long it takes to do that. So it is because today is the music concert after this. We will skip question answer session today because it was just a narrative lecture, nothing much philosophical in it. So I'll just tell you, next week is the last week before we close for this summer break. So it is the next Sunday we shall have the discussion on undisturbed peace. Tuesday and Friday lectures will go on as usual, and then we will be closing for the summer break. For some time there will be no program, but then from July 4th there will be very regular different type of programs. So you are all welcome to attend those programs. They will be soon published. Some of them are already put on our website. Some of them will be printed in our July and August flyer. Now we'll have the closing prayer. So please join in chanting the closing prayer. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, our Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. We shall now have the arati, and then the music concert will begin. The musicians are both here and they are having a little practice, and we will give them a few more minutes for practice.
God incarnate and the Lord of all things, helping us join with you. Your mind's always set in the divine light. Your mind's always set in the divine light. This we can see through your grace. So infinite is your God. Your life's offered for the world's deliverance. Your life's offered for the world's deliverance, saving us from darkness and fear. Renouncer of all lust and lucre, therefore you were always burning sensual light. Lord amongst you are the best of men. Lord amongst you are the best of men. Grant to us pure love for you. You're fearless and you're free from doubting, with your mind ready, complete is all. Causeless refuge of your devotees, causeless refuge of your devotees, renouncing caste and birth. Our treasure is your holy feet, which make us very soon across this burden of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish. Our treasure is your holy feet, which take us very soon across this bundle of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of hope. all the sounds of rhythm. These are all the sounds of rhythm. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Jaya Jaya for your worship divine. Hara Hara for your worship divine. Shiva Shiva for your worship divine. Breaker of all our worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Auspicious and blessed, graciousness sublime, all noble ends you give to us, granting us refuge, all seeing glory. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Creation, preservation, dissolution are your powers, eternal one. Nature's real basis, nature's essence. O Mother Divine, our love to you. We come seeking refuge from anguish. Be our Savior through your deep concern. All our suffering remove, Goddess. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Victory, O Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, our love to you. Jai Shri Ramakrishna Deva Ki Jai. Jai Shri शारदा देवी की जय। जय श्री स्वामी विवेकानंद की जय। जय श्री बुद्धदेव की जय। जय